It's not often you see a driver under this much pressure, but Yuki Tsunoda's recent showing in Austria might have just written the final chapter of his Red Bull stint. The Japanese driver didn't just finish last, he did that in a race, wherefore other cars didn't even make it to the end. On top of that, a reckless move landed him a 10-second penalty, leaving whatever chances he had completely buried. That one race may have sealed his fate. If this was his moment to prove his worth, he missed it badly. Now, there's real talk in the paddock. Is Red Bull already eyeing a replacement? Especially with Lindblad having just received his super license under exemption rules? The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Red Bull had a terrible weekend, and that too, at their home ground in Austria. Without Max Verstappen, the team would have looked like midfield runners at best. Tsunoda's performance came at the worst possible time. He didn't perform in qualifying, and he fell apart during the race. That hurts not just his prospects for 2026, but maybe even the rest of 2025. The internal pressure is rising. Red Bull is not known for being patient, and now that drivers like Ishak Hadjar and Arvid Lindblad are gaining momentum, Tsunoda's seat is no longer secure. This isn't a rumor anymore. Comments from Helmut Marko have made it clear. Tsunoda's weaknesses are known, and they're no longer being excused. Speaking bluntly about Tsunoda's struggles, Helmut Marko didn't hold back. He pointed out that while Yuki's first set of laps were close enough to make Q3, the moment conditions changed, he couldn't adjust. Max, on the other hand, knows how to push the car even when things get tricky. The real issue, according to Marko, is that the car itself has a very narrow performance window. It's sensitive, tough to handle at the edge, and that's not good for a driver who's already battling for his place. In a team like Red Bull, where seats are earned and lost quickly, the last thing any driver wants is open criticism from the man in charge of who gets promoted, but that's exactly what happened. And now, two young drivers, Hadjar and Lindblad, are in a stronger position than Tsunoda in the championship standings. After the Austrian Grand Prix, Yuki sits 7th, and even that looks shaky. Across the last 5 races, Tsunoda hasn't made it to Q3 once. He dropped out in Q1 3 times, and couldn't go past Q2 twice. In modern Formula 1, qualifying sets the tone for the weekend, and if you're not starting strong, there's little chance of recovering, especially if you're making the kind of risky overtakes that got him penalized in Austria. Austria proved to be another low point. Tsunoda attempted aggressive moves on both Stroll and Colapinto, but it backfired. In turn 6, his contact with Colapinto caused the Argentinian to spin, and that led directly to the 10-second penalty. For a team relying on its second car when Verstappen retires from a race, this was a major letdown. Red Bull was already under pressure, and this performance just made it worse. When your top driver is forced to retire, the responsibility falls on the other car to bring home points, but instead of delivering, Tsunoda's driving raised more concerns. The gap between him and the front-runners isn't small anymore, it's massive, and Tsunoda himself knows it. In his post-race comments, there was no attempt to hide the frustration. He admitted he's not performing like he did during his earlier seasons. Saying it out loud only confirmed what many had been suspecting, that things aren't just off. They're falling apart. His comments after qualifying were especially telling. He said he just can't seem to get it right during those crucial laps. While he had hoped to reach Q3 and felt confident in the car initially, something keeps slipping away, and that something is what's keeping him from closing the gap to where he needs to be. Even Max Verstappen during Q2 mentioned that the car was tricky, but the key difference is that Max knows how to handle it. Tsunoda openly admitted he isn't at the point where he can adjust mid-lap or get the most out of the car. He even said he's far from the form he had during his days at AlphaTauri, and it didn't stop there. Yuki was also baffled by his pace. During the Grand Prix itself, he confessed he couldn't figure out what exactly he was doing wrong. The gap between where he is and where he needs to be feels huge. Despite working closely with his engineers, there's no clear direction for improvement. It's a worrying sign. The same sort of situation that led Red Bull to let go of Lawson after only 2 races. The team had no faith that he could get more out of the RB21. Ironically, Lawson has since managed to pick up 12 points and now sits ahead of Tsunoda in the standings. That alone says a lot. So now the question arises, is moving up to Red Bull even a real upgrade when compared to staying with Racing Bulls? Would Hadjar be better off sticking to where he is, rather than risking it all with the main team? These are the kinds of decisions that are being talked about behind the scenes. Looking ahead, Red Bull's next steps seem fairly straightforward. They need someone who can consistently support Verstappen, someone who can perform under pressure, and deliver results. Right now, the top contender for that position appears to be Ishak, but there's a twist. His current team principal Laurent Mekies has publicly stated that Hadjar is expected to stay with Racing Bulls until the end of 2026. That's a long commitment. However, if there's one thing we know about how Red Bull operates, it's that plans can change quickly. The big question is whether the potential shown by these young drivers at Racing Bulls can actually translate into consistent performance at the main team. So far, drivers like Lawson and Tsunoda haven't exactly made a strong case. but that doesn't mean others won't. Hajar, for one, has said he would accept the offer if Helmut Marko or Christian Horner comes calling, even though he's admitted he doesn't feel completely ready yet. Still, chances like this don't come around often, and when they do, most drivers aren't going to pass them up. Yes, on the surface, it may seem like a step back, more pressure, more scrutiny, but with Verstappen's long-term future looking unclear, the seat next to him could quickly turn into a leading role. That's an opportunity that very few would want to miss. This situation could actually work in favor of both teams. If Hajar moves up to Red Bull, it opens a spot at Racing Bulls, and that's where Arvid Lindblad enters the picture. He's already on the radar, and Red Bull seems serious about fast-tracking his development. The recent FP1 session at Silverstone is a clear sign of that intent. Red Bull doesn't promote just for the sake of it. They observe, they test, and only then do they act. Before throwing Lindblad into the pressure cooker of the main team, they'll want to see what he's really capable of in competitive conditions. That's exactly why Racing Bulls exists, to prepare talent before handing them the spotlight. If Hajar does take Tsunoda's seat, Lindblad could be next in line for the Racing Bulls position, and that means Tsunoda could be left without a drive for the upcoming season. It sounds harsh, but that's how the system works. No one forced Yuki into this. He's been given multiple seasons to prove himself. This is the very opportunity Tsunoda had been aiming for since his debut with Alfa. Yet, after all the time and effort, the performance isn't where it needs to be. And unfortunately, in Formula One, past efforts don't count for much. If you can't deliver now at this point, it's fair to ask some difficult questions. Yes, Red Bull's recent car upgrades have raised eyebrows, and even Max Verstappen hasn't been fully satisfied with the handling. But the reality is Max is still making it work. He's reaching Q3, fighting at the front, and squeezing every bit of performance from the car. The person sitting beside him needs to be at least close, within 0.3 of a second, ideally. Instead, Tsunoda is struggling to get out of Q1. That's a massive gap at this level of racing. F1 pundit Peter Windsor didn't hold back either, calling Tsunoda's performance in Austria one of the biggest disappointments of the entire weekend. On a track where Verstappen was setting lap times under 1:05, Tsunoda was clocking 1 minute 5 seconds and 3 milliseconds, and getting eliminated in Q1, he seemed completely off rhythm, battling both oversteer and understeer depending on the lap. According to Windsor, Tsunoda isn't using the front end of the car the way Verstappen does, and that difference is huge. Whether that's a lack of understanding, feedback issues, or simply a gap in driving ability, no one's quite sure. But what is certain is this: Yuki's seat is in real danger, unless something changes quickly, not in talk, but on track. This could be his final stretch with the team. And that brings us to the question many fans are already asking: is it time to let someone else take the wheel? Should Red Bull go all in on Hajar? And if they do, will Yuki be gone from Formula One for good? The next few races might decide everything.